Speaker. Singapore Police Force is empowered under the Criminal Procedure Code to obtain any data, and that includes the TraceTogether data, for criminal investigations. The government is the custodian of the TT data submitted by the individuals, and stringent measures are put in place to safeguard this personal data. Examples of these measures include only allowing authorized officers to access the data, using such data only for authorized purposes, and storing the data on a secure data platform. Under the Public Sector Governance Act, public officers who recklessly or knowingly disclose the data without authorization or misuse the data may be liable of a fine up to $5,000 or imprisonment of up to 2 years, or both.
Mr. Chris D'Souza.
Sir, I thank the MOS for his response. In an investigation, there are suspects and there are witnesses. So in the event that the TraceTogether information is used of a witness, would there be the possibility of deletion of this information by virtue of its private nature if the investigation doesn't yield anything or the investigation comes to a close? So I'm wanting to draw a distinction between the suspect and a witness. Thank you.
Yes, the data will only be taken from the individual, and in the event that in a criminal case where there is a suspect and a witness, for the witnesses, we will extract the data from the witnesses. However, for individual, they are suspect or under investigation, the data will not be extracted from this for purpose of the security.
Mr. Jarugam.
So we all know that, that effective contact tracing is key to containing the spread of COVID-19, and the more people use TraceTogether, the better. We should always be looking for ways to improve to remove the impediments to voluntary adoption of the TraceTogether app. So if people suspect that the TraceTogether data is being used for anything other than contact tracing, won't this lead to a lower than expected adoption rate? And I'm sure the MOS is aware that there are ways in which users can prevent the app from being used, for example, exchanging proximity date information, even if they have it installed. So my question is, now that the government has said that they might actually use the TraceTogether data for police investigations, does this not violate the TraceTogether privacy statement, which says that any data shared with MOH will only be used solely for contact tracing of persons possibly exposed to COVID-19?
Thank you for the questions. TraceTogether is conceived and implemented for the purpose of contact tracing and for fighting the COVID-19 pandemic. We do not preclude the use of TraceTogether data in circumstances where citizen safety and security is or has been affected, and this applies to all other data as well. And authorized police officers may invoke then the Criminal Procedure Code I mentioned earlier, powers to obtain this data for purpose of criminal investigation and for the purpose of the safety and security of our citizens. But otherwise, TraceTogether data is indeed to be used only for contact tracing and for purpose of fighting COVID situation.